Fans, the Lions fall flat on their face, 33-17 at home to Chad Kelly and the Toronto Argonauts. My high-level thoughts of this game: this is deja vu all over again. The Lions losing going into a bye week. This time, though, they don't have 5 games to lose in a row. We're running out of time. We're running out of steam, and the same mistakes are rearing their ugly heads again. Arthur, what do you think?
They're a 500 team. They have some of the talent, but they just, when it comes down to it, they just can't get it done. And I think the offense gives them, my opinion, the offense gives them swagger. The offense gives them a lot of confidence, and that's the identity of the Lions team. They're not. I don't think their identity is a defensive team. And if their offense is not doing well and making other teams pay, and then I think they kind of flounder, and they lack that killer instinct. So as their offense goes, so goes the team a bit, I think. And this is my opinion. Roland, what do you think?
Yeah. First off, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. If you're online, just feel free to chat, and we'll read your chat and we'll comment with you. Blake says the fact of the matter is you are what your record is. Absolutely. So we've seen glimpse of brilliance, at the beginning of the season, the last 2 games prior to this one. But the inconsistency just kills me. We saw that they were able to bring up the intensity those last 2 games, and
Mhm.
and it did them well. And then this last game, they were flat in front of the home crowd. Why were they flat? I have no idea why. I mean, they know they have the ability to bring the intensity up, but for whatever reason, they just decided, they're going to take it easy. Did they believe that they were on a roll and that things are going to coast from now on? I don't think so, but that's sure what it seemed like. Yes, the offensive line was a little bit of a patchwork, and it was very porous. Our quarterbacks were rushed, the whole night. I don't know how many sacks there were. There were so many sacks. Our DBs, without the intensity, they're weak, right? They needed the intensity to be able to make the plays and make the tackles. Without the intensity, the receivers were just catching, and they were back to where they were allowing them to catch and then playing catch up, right? So that's what it was. So very, very disappointing. I was really, really disappointed. But before I go on, I just want to say aloha. I am calling from Hawaii today, so that's why
Aloha.
we don't have our normal setup, our normal setup. And so when you guys type on the chat, we can read your chat, but I can't display it on screen. Um, and I just want to say to my 2 bros, Greg and Arthur, I got you each one of these.
Love it.
Ah,
So
there we go. Thank you, Roland.
Arthur sent an Instagram photo of this, right? If you recall.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I found this, and I'll bring that back to you at the end
Awesome.
of the week.
Awesome.
But yeah, so another comment from Blake. Because they knew the season was on the line in TD Pacific and Montreal, but I don't get why they didn't have the same intensity because they still have everything to play for.
I can't agree more
Yeah,
with Blake more.
yeah,
You know,
exactly. Oh, and he adds, they still do even after the loss. Yeah, uh,
if
I
I may,
just,
for the Blake, this game to me had more significance than touchdown Pacific. Yeah, the season was on the line of that one because you need to just stop the bleeding with that skid. But you knew going into this game, Winnipeg is on a roll. You knew going into this game, Winnipeg has the tiebreaker. You knew going into this place, y'all were tied for first place with Winnipeg, who has the tiebreaker. You knew going into this game, if you win this one, you still kind of are mostly in control, like we talked about outside the podcast with the bros here. Losing this game, and I'm going to be real bold here, I'm really going to say losing this game likely cost them the division, period, and maybe even the cup.
Oh, come on, Greg.
That
It's a
puppy was over at
9-team
9-0.
league. It's a 9-team league, man. Come on. That's way too early to call it. Way, way too early.
I invite any and all listeners out there, subscribers, passer-buyers, looky-loos, whatever, come on in, chime in with a feedback, because I really think this game, at the very least, cost them the division.
No,
Because
no,
I
no.
can't see Winnipeg faltering. There's only 4 games left. I can't see Winnipeg faltering between now and the end. Oh, yeah, one other thing the Lions know. They know going into Winnipeg, it's never easy. So again, with all that they knew, the one thing they didn't know is what cost them. That's how to adjust. Again, that's one of all the things we talked about: lack of intensity, lack of an offensive imagination. I'm saying
All right.
the division is done. They are
All
not
right, all
seeing
right,
first
So,
all
place.
right.
so we have a comment. Ashley Minhas. Hi, Ashley. Nice to meet you. Sorry, we can't show your comments on the screen today because I don't have my equipment with me. But he agrees with you, Greg. He says, "Truth, first place gone yet again, and we got to go to Death Valley for them, which is Winnipeg."
What's that gentleman's name again?
Ashley.
Thank you.
Um,
Do you hear that, Arthur?
so
Just saying.
Uh, I mean, I kind of agree with Arthur. It's a little bit premature. Anything can still happen. But what I can say though, Greg, is that we are no longer in the driver's seat because it was a bye week for Winnipeg. If we had kept the gas on the pedal and won this game, then Winnipeg will be playing catch up.
Right, going into
Um,
our bye week. Exactly.
yeah, but since we lost now we've kind of lost. We're no longer in the driver's seat. We are depending on Winnipeg to lose for us to get first place.
And that's a pretty big dependency.
Oh,
I
come
mean,
on. Are they going to run the table?
what are Winnipeg's final 4 games? You tell me.
Edmonton. I'm not sure who else. I just know there's Edmonton back to back.
Yeah. So it's going to be hard for them to win both of those games, but we'll see.
But I mean,
It was supposed to be hard for them to win both the games against us, remember? That wasn't that long
Yeah,
ago.
but Edmonton is kind of on a streak right now. Unlike us, who is kind of up and down. Edmonton is kind of moving up, right?
I like how you say we're up. I don't see an up.
We were up and down.
Yeah. Don't get me
Okay,
wrong,
let's.
Leo's Legion out there. I love these lines. I live and die with these lines. I will support these lines till I am 6 feet under. But I got to call it like I see it. I got to call it how I feel it. This team shows absolutely nothing going into the home stretch.
Come on. No. Come on. Mr. Melodramatic shows nothing? No.
Nothing. Nothing.
Wait.
Nothing.
All right. I got it. Let me say something. The defense played well in the first half.
Yeah. Okay.
Defense. Yeah. For the fact that they were able to hold them to all field goals
correct,
instead
yes.
of touchdowns.
Until the last minute. Until the last minute,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
the offense, 4 2-and-outs? 5 2-and-outs?
To start the game, yeah. I
Yeah.
think it was 4.
I mean,
what?
Okay, go ahead.
Let's dig deeper. What went wrong? Because what I saw there was that our first down production was like nothing. You know, either we're going 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8. You know, that's what we're getting, right? So our first down production was compared to Toronto's first down production. They were like 2nd and 1, 2nd and 2.
I remember
right?
Arthur commenting in the game. How many times was Toronto in 2nd and inches? Right. And I mean, that's hard on our D line trying to submarine that. That takes a lot more energy to stop 2nd and inches than running around, I think. Right.
Yeah. So I wanna talk about what went wrong, like dig deeper, right? Because definitely the defense held up until they got tired. I mean, you can only expect so much, right? But before we do that, let's go to the comments. Blake says Elks times 2. So there's Winnipeg schedule. Elks times 2. Ticats, Owls, and Argos. Ashi says so up and down. Hopefully Edmonton can get a split in the Winnipeg back-to-back games. Yeah, I'm hoping that'll happen too. Blake says, I have a tough question for you guys. Do the Lions even host a playoff game this year? So Greg is leaning towards possibly not. Todd says, I'll call last game as the trap game. Recently traveled to Ottawa, Victoria, Montreal, then Vancouver, but late in season. Yeah, trap game.
The game we just lost was the trap game.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think so. I
we
agree with that.
were overconfident. Yeah.
Well, no, I think the Lions were the last team to have the second bye. You guys can say all you want about, oh, they're all professional, they should play for every game. They were due for their second bye, and they're the last team to get it. I think they kind of had a bye the game during the game a bit.
Yeah, they took their bye 1 week early.
But they really needed it. I think, they had a lot of games on the road, and in the second segment, between the byes, they had a lot of road games. The travel game to Victoria. They were really amped for the Victoria game, Touchdown Pacific. They're really amped for the Montreal game, right? Because hey, this is the number one team in the league. If we beat them, it's a statement game for us. And then you kind of relax a little. I know what you guys are going to say. You can't relax. Your human nature. Last game before a bye. You just beat Montreal, and you're on a 2-game win streak.
Montreal and Ottawa.
Yeah. You feel good about yourself. You're getting a little confidence back, and then you're at home, and you kind of exhale. You're at home finally, right? I mean, all these games are on the road. For most part, except that Winnipeg game, right? They're all on the road. So you finally can exhale, and then that's what happened. And it's just the defense kind of showed up for most of this first half, except for the last minute, right? I mean, they were out possession 2-1 in the first half, and they just needed another minute. And they could have escaped. But regardless, the offense didn't give them much. And they needed that offense to give them something. I mean, some drops. I mean, I would say the first 4 series, what's going on with the play calling? And I know Grohl and I, we can talk lots about the offensive play calling. They tried to go stand back a couple of times first down. They pretty much got stuffed for 2 or 3 yard gains, and then they started going deep.
They did, yeah.
They started going deep again, right? And whether Nate's off just a tad. I mean, a lot of those throws are close, but
close, yeah.
Close.
I mean, they were off, right? Like you said, if the receivers just made those catches, it would be different, right?
If the QB gave it to them perfect, it would have been a much easier catch. But some of those were catchable balls that other receivers on CFL teams are making. Now, Chad Kelly had an axe to grind with Nathan Rourke this game. So Chad Kelly amped it up. I mean, he played very well. Escaping.
He did.
Greg doesn't like it, but escaping the pocket, and he made really pinpoint throws. He didn't really go downfield much. It was all the underneath stuff.
It was all the yak yards, like you said.
Yeah, a lot of. But RP is taking away the deep ball. He's taking away the deep game, and he's giving you the underneath, the bend don't break. And Toronto took full advantage.
What I saw with Chad Kelly too was that he was getting the ball out fast. He was Nate and even VA later on was holding on to the ball longer than what Chad Kelly was. So he got it out fast, and he respected our D line, right? He knew that with Betts in, they were a different D line now. And quite a few plays I saw Betts get up to Chad Kelly, even hit him and get him on the ground. But by then the ball was gone, right? So they adjusted well. Those were things that they did well.
Well, that short passing game was very, very apparent when in Touchdown Pacific. Those balls were out quick. Nathan got rid of the ball, and then we got those yak yards. But if I could go back to what Arthur said, last team, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to say, I agree with you. That's the last team to get the bye, but coming home and human nature, they exhale a little bit after, getting a little bit of confidence back. But that's why all human beings are not championship teams or not champions, period, because they do the human nature thing and exhale a little bit when they got a little bit of confidence. Championship pedigrees, whether it's an individual or a team, They go until the end and beyond the end. If the Lions had that roll coming out of Montreal, going into touchdown Pacific going to Montreal, then they needed to amp it up one more time at home before the bye, at home, to show the home fans that weren't in Victoria and to show the owner that, yes, we have turned the corner. Right now, it looks like they peeked around the corner, didn't like what they see, got scared of a shadow, I don't care what it is, and crawled back into whatever hole that streak dug for them. They needed to go past that game into the bye with the same intensity like Roland talked about that they had in Touchdown Pacific and Montreal if they expect to be a championship team. My opinion.
I mean, the one good thing I would say to respond to that, Greg, is that now they've tasted what it meant, what happens when you take the gas off the pedal, because they had that intensity the last two games, and for whatever reason they relaxed a bit, they exhaled, as Arthur said, they took the gas off the pedal. The intensity was obviously not there. And now going into the bye week, they've got a whole week to think about, this is what happens when you don't take things seriously, when you let up even just a little bit. The opponents are good enough that even if you just let up a little bit, it's going to bite you.
Well,
I want to go back to just some comments. So Blake says, I wouldn't be mad if the Lions left Chad crying after the Grey Cup game. Yeah, that would be nice. Actually,
Blake, they got to get there, buddy.
I was secretly hoping that they would have left him crying after this game this past weekend, but I guess it didn't happen. Blake also says, also Montreal's record after Game 14 last year was 7 out of 7. Just saying, and Ashley agrees too. That's true. I mean, there's again, all is not lost. It's still the Grey Cup is still very much winnable for us, but we gotta really be serious. Like we can't lose any more games. That's what Montreal did, right? The last 7 games last year. Suddenly they kicked it up to another gear,
wow.
and then they just left everyone
and
behind.
You know why, right? Sankey and Lemon.
Yes.
Sankey and Lemon came onto their team, and Cody started playing much better, right?
Cody had confidence. He was playing out of this world confident.
But like Sankey and Lemon are difference makers. For like Lemon, I couldn't believe it, but Sankey, I could believe it, right? They made plays and they brought that veteran leadership to that team.
Yeah.
And they brought some nastiness to that D.
Definitely. So so what was missing in the game, the Argos game, was the Lions couldn't make a big play to swing the modem. Offensively, they couldn't really make a big play.
Yeah.
Defensively, they needed to force a turnover, right? They had to do something. I mean, Greg, you talked about championship pedigree intensity. The intensity means when when the chips are down, someone has to make a big play.
Yep.
And Winnipeg in the past, they rose up and made the big play. When Toronto won the Grey Cup, they rose up and made the play. In Montreal, they rose up and made a big play. So we are difference makers. We're not difference makers. That was it.
Question.
I mean, I think just for that game though, because
just for that game,
if you look at our players, we have the ability. We have arguably, I would say, we have the 2 best quarterbacks in the league, right? I mean, number 1, number 2.
But if the catcher, if the receivers ain't catching, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is it?
Wow.
Yeah, but so I mean, going to the point of Arthur saying how Montreal turned the corner, right? Arguably we've got the 2 best quarterbacks in the league. Matthew Betts coming back, so I don't think what we need is a change of personnel. I think we have the personnel we need to run the last to win all the games like Montreal did, right? What we need is a shift in the thinking, right? A shift in the intensity and the desire, and we've seen that they can do that. So making the big plays, we saw big plays the last 2 games. Actually, even this game, like McInnes made some big plays. I mean, it was late in the game. His first target, was a big play. Maybe we should have gone to him sooner. I don't know if he was taken out by by Toronto's D earlier in the game. But we need to go to our playmakers, right? There, he was. We were going to Hollins. Hollins is kind of iffy. We were going to Hatcher. McInnes and Eberhard are the hot hands. Maybe we should be going to them, right?
Yeah, Eberhard, 0 points in my fantasy, by the way, like zero. Because I think he had the fumble recovery and that was it. That's the closest he got to the ball.
So what Toronto was doing in the game was they were doing gap cancellation with their linebackers close to the line of scrimmage, taking away that run first down. So what was open for the Lions was to go deep.
Yes.
Right? On first down was to go deep. Second down, they would back up and then they would get pressure on the quarterback. Of course,
yes.
The O-line was not as good as previous weeks, and that's a major contributor of why the Lions lost, was the O-line. But they just couldn't get that. They couldn't. Their first down, I mean, all the short stuff was taken up. Toronto had a good plan. So a lot of teams were like, okay, they rush three, spy one. The Mike spies, the middle linebacker spies. Rest drop into coverage. So Toronto mix it up. They first down. They stacked a box. Remember, but we were like, why aren't you attacking the edges? Right? They're stacking the box.
Yeah.
The Lions were just trying to do things. It seems like McKismick needs more variety. I think everyone's caught on a bit.
They did try to go to the edge once, but it was a little behind stand back and he dropped the ball.
Yeah, that was like one of the first series.
But then we should have done it again.
We have seen hints and flashes of creativity from McSimick's offense. We've seen those misdirections, multiple motions. We seem to have gotten away from that because, like you said, Arthur, I think there's this, I don't know, stubbornness, arrogance, whatever it is, that our deep passing game will beat you no matter what you do to us. And I really agree with you on that one.
I just think they feel that they can out-execute even if their scheme is going to get countered by the defense, but they can out-execute a scheme that's working against them. Because they have superior quarterbacks, they have good receivers, but when the quarterbacks are not playing at an A+ level, and they were not,
or the receiver's not catching,
and the receiver's not catching. I mean, they're not getting open, and because I think another question is how come McInnes wasn't targeted? If you're the DC for the Argos, who are you taking away? You're taking away McInnes, right? Yep. He leads the league in receiving. That's an easy one to take away. Why are you throwing to Hollins? Is because he's the deep guy. He's the guy that can get open deep. And if Toronto's going to potentially have more spaces open deep, he's your guy, right? But the problem is, who are the other speedsters in our receiving core? If we want to play a possession game, the intermediate short routes, McInnes is your guy. And then we're trying to go Hatcher deep. Sorry, Hatcher's a good receiver. I don't know if he's your deep threat receiver.
He's not a speed to burn. No, definitely. So, we've seen him. We've seen him even in the open field when he catches it and he has to sprint that last 30 yards to the end zone. I mean, you wonder if he's going to get there or get chased down from behind. No offense, he's a great receiver. He's just not a burner.
And he's not that tall. Yeah. So I mean, you're doing like.
And to be fair, I think all of our receivers are good. Right, they're good. But there's hot and cold, right? So Hollins has been cold for a while. Hatcher is kind of getting warmer, but he's still not a hot hand. Our hot hands right now are McInnes and Eberhard, right? Those are our hot hands. I would say.
So all things considered, I was going to ask this question earlier. I think, Roland, you answered it. But, okay, take all the injuries away. Put everybody that Neil McAvoy and Rick Campbell assembled to be the starting lineup for this team, right? Do we have the playmakers on all three units to make a big play when needed? And I'm talking mentality-wise, ability-wise.
Hold that thought. We're going to answer that. I just want to read some comments from the chat. So Ashley says, so glad I've come across this. You fellas are passionate and do a great job. The more local Lions coverage, the better. Thank you, Ashley. We are very passionate, and We love our Lions. We're complaining a lot right now, but we are huge Lions fans. Blake says, Ashley, the 3 Down Bros are awesome. But if you enjoy content, check out Canadian Football Fanatics. We're not as good as these guys. Though. No. So yes, first shout out to Canadian Football Fanatics. Blake and Cole are awesome. So Blake is being too humble there. No, they're awesome. Very good content, and they have multiple live streams a week. So if you want to like really jump into the deep end with Lions coverage.
Well, and also CFL coverage. They do broad CFL coverage.
So. They do great coverage of Canadian gridiron, period. Those guys from high school, right, college to the pros, those guys are great. And they got 2 good initials, B and C. You can't ask for more than that. Right?
Blake says, shoddy at best. I think he was referring to when you were talking about the bad O-line. And I think instead of shoddy, I think he might have meant shitty. But
are we a family?
Actually, am I supposed to say that on
7 sacks given up? 7 sacks given up, man.
Didn't I say to you guys when we were going into that game, why did they mess with what was working? They had to patchwork that line in Montreal, correct? Montreal's got as much fearsome a front 7 as Toronto, right? Yeah. But they had guys out going into that game. They had guys go down during that game. I was working the late shift. All I could hear, Moj, is Lions O-linemen are dropping like flies. And I'm like, uh-oh. But I remember a fan telling me, hey, Knievel at left tackle, that's a natural position for him, a tackle. Every time Knievel has played guard, he's porous. What did they do? They put him at right, they put him in guard again. And Schuler came back. Schuler, however they pronounce it.
Schuler, yeah.
And they put him at tackle. But he was doing awesome as a guard when it was him and Packer. So why on earth would somebody mess with what was working?
Yeah, I don't know. Let me just read some more comments online. So, Zero Connect says, hello, Zero. Nice that you can join us. So he says, I keep thinking that we did not pressure Chad Kelly or try to disrupt the Argos offense. Really inconsistent. Yeah, absolutely agree. He says, yes, the O-line was awful, didn't protect Rourke or Adams. You know, one thing I noticed, just comparing in that game, right, our pass protection. So if you look at Toronto's pass protection, their O-line would push our D-line to the edges. So they would rush forward, and then they would push them out. Chad Kelly would be in the pocket, and if it starts to collapse, he can step up, and then he could make the throw or run, right? Because it's been opened. But our O-line, at least for this game, they didn't do that. They didn't push the D-line out. In fact, they were collapsing into the quarterback. So there were quite a few times where the quarterback would step up, and the guys would be right there because there was no opening.
Question for my bros here and anybody out commenting. Did the O-line protect long enough in that loss to Toronto had we had a quick passing game, a short passing game, like the Montreal game, like touchdown, the Victoria game? But again, Toronto was flooding those zones. Maybe
if we got the ball out quickly, I think that would have been enough.
But the quick routes were taken up, I believe.
Well, they're doing a short zone. They're doing press. They're doing press man or doing a short zone, and the linebackers are like 2 yards from the line of scrimmage a lot of the time.
So
and they're sitting right in the gaps. Well, I mean that they're like, we know your O-line. We know we can probably beat your O-line. You design a defense, Greg. You're a DC. If you feel you can get pressure on 4-man rush,
which would be heaven to any DC, 3 or 4-man rush pressure would be heaven.
And look at the composition of the Lions receivers. Who do you really fear deep? So what would you do? What would you do? What defense would you conjure up if you can get 4-man rush, 4-man pressured on the quarterback, and you can flood the short zones? You do press. Where are they going to throw? VA likes to throw in a zone, right? Rourke is a little different, but he just couldn't get in sync, right? Like he didn't know which part of the O-line was going to break down, and they're in second and long, right? And Rourke didn't have a great game.
Whereas Kelly knew, also like Roland said, when you push both sides to the edges, that means Kelly can step up in the middle, and he's got both sides of the field he can work, which he did.
Whereas I think he ran
one side, then it's a little harder. But which is, like you said, our quarterbacks had no idea where they were going to go if the pocket collapsed.
Well, they couldn't predict where the gap was going to be for the run through. because it's like someone's breaking down and they have to go outside the tackles, right? Now Kelly got about 4 or 5 first downs just by running through a gap and then running for a first down, and that's just totally killer
Yeah.
because you had some kind of pressure, you had some breakdowns, and then you had everyone covered, and he just ran for a first down. So,
You know how you said earlier he had an axe to grind.
oh
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Did William Stanback have an axe to grind when he played Montreal in Montreal?
hell
Sure did.
yeah,
Look what he
He
did,
did.
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Did BC have an axe to grind in Victoria playing the team that kind of beat them the week before? Sure they did, right? Axe to grind builds up the intensity. This was the team that embarrassed you starting the year. Why didn't you have that
Well, I
intensity?
mean, they were up. Lines were up on the road, and then they kind of lost a one-score game at the end, right? And
They
then with all
still
those
lost. Have
fumbles,
the
well,
axe
yeah,
grind. This is the rubber man. Like,
yeah.
smack. They're coming into your house. The line just like, here, come into my house. Here's the key. We're leaving. Help yourself to everything.
Well, I mean,
It's
it's. I
brutal.
think it's just more they needed that bye. I think there's a lot of bumps and bruises. There's a lot of people banged up. Hey, everyone's banged up this time of year, but
Well,
having a bye would would help them. And I think
Yeah.
they're
I
going
think
to have
it's too little, too late.
advantage. They're going to
I'm
have
still
an
sticking to it.
advantage, right? Because they're going to have the bye now, and then they have the bye at the last week of the year, right? So they're going to have an advantage potentially going in the playoffs. Whether they host a game or not, it's not looking great because Winnipeg's on a roll, Edmonton's on the roll, and we're fighting right there with Saskatchewan, right?
Another question
And
for you guys. Roland had said that they're not in the driver's seat at the moment, right? They agreed?
well, against Winnipeg,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
With the home stretch coming, can they get in the driver's seat? Can they wrestle that driver's seat back from Winnipeg? What do you guys think? What do Blake and all the other guys out there in comment world think? Can the Lions wrestle that driver's seat back?
I mean, even if the best we can do now is to just win every single game.
Flawless football.
If Winnipeg does the same thing, we have no control.
Who's the
Right.
backup quarterback for the Blue Bombers?
Jake Dolagala.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Those guys are a little banged up too, right? So
Yeah,
things can happen. I mean, this is
it
this is
can
a
happen.
wonky
Yeah,
year. This is a wonky year.
for
Like
sure.
Montreal's lost 2 games in a row now, or one in a tie. In
That's a
Calgary,
loss.
right?
That's a loss if you lose like that to tie Calgary.
I,
That's a loss. No
I
offense to
know,
Calgarians. Well, maybe a little bit.
but I mean, that's a wacky year, and like
Yeah,
Hamilton's on a roll now, like, and Ottawa might get caught. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, there might even be an Eastern crossover. You never know, right? This is a wacky year. I mean,
it is. It
the
is. This
Lions
year
going
is
on a
really
five
weird.
game
Yeah,
skid. I mean, and then the Riders have lost 6 out of 7. They had a tie in there. I'm like, who would have thought that, right? They with a great start. I mean,
yeah.
so
And I think Arthur, you were even saying before the live stream started, the two best teams in the league, Montreal and Ottawa, we beat them, and then the following week they lose to
yeah, they had subpar
they
performances. Like Ottawa
yeah,
got spanked by Hamilton
Yes.
for crying out loud.
yeah,
So it's a wacky year. This is kind of. I think that your traditional norms, right? You're like, okay. I think you might throw a bit of that out the window, and then let's just see what happens, right? For
yeah,
me, it doesn't
exactly.
matter. I mean, yes, I would not want to go to Winnipeg to play the Bombers in the Western Final in Winnipeg, 100%. But
Yeah.
more
But worst case,
importantly, yeah, history is. But more importantly, is how are the Lions playing in the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the end of the year?
yeah,
If they're playing well, I like their chances, right? If they
exactly.
somehow squeak through and get to the Western Final, but they're not playing well, it's you got one
Deja
game to
vu all
win.
over again.
Yeah, so I'm like,
Yeah,
you might as well focus on playing well and then let the chips fly where they may.
exactly. Focus on what you can do, right? So, like I said, the best we can do is just win every game that we can. If that gets us at the top of the Western Division, great. If not, that's fine. We got to go in there with the grit. Whoever home we're going into to play the Western Final, we got to go in there with the same grit that we went in with Montreal. If we can win in Montreal, I think we can win in Winnipeg. It's just, what is the intensity that we're bringing into the game, right?
We should have an
So
axe to grind in going into Winnipeg from all the years previous we've gone into Winnipeg. But
yeah,
question then,
exactly.
do you guys think we have what it takes based on what we saw, based on, let's say we get 50% of the healthiness back that we've lost going into this bye? Do we have what it takes to win out that we
Yeah,
said we have to do?
absolutely. We've seen it. We've seen it with the two previous games. We are able to do it. So the question is not do we have it, because we do have it. But in order to get that, you got to dig deep. And so the question is, can they dig deep? So it's not a question of ability. It's not a question of talent. It's
Oh,
a
and I say
question
it, I
of
mean everything. I mean, not just, I mean,
yeah,
we have the talent or they wouldn't have amassed it as GMs I mean, Neil McAvoy's been around long enough to recognize talent, blah, blah, blah. I'm saying, do we have enough to dig deep? Like, Arthur says we got some bumps and bruises. Okay, let's get 70% of those bumps and bruises healed. Do we have enough to dig deep?
All
Do
right,
we
I'll
have
answer
what
your
it takes to
question,
dig
Greg.
deep?
I'll answer your question. Do we have Ben Helatic? I mean, Woods is gone, right? So do we have Ben Helatic back?
Is
Because
Ben
those working linebackers, they're hitting a bit of a wall. Okay, do I have Ben Helatic back? Do I have the two offensive tackles back and playing well? And I can put Schuler in on left guard. Do I have that? I probably don't have Holland. That's fine. But do I have Schuler left guard? Do I have my two offensive tackles back and healthy?
Perkins, when he's healthy, I don't know. There's been a lot of people I've seen
But
on the side
then you have Knievel, right? Right?
as a right tackle. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure, fine.
right. But do I have Ben Helatic at least to spell Varga? Because and Ely, I think they rose up really. They played really well in
yeah,
2 wins.
they did.
But
Yeah,
Toronto was attacking them. Toronto was attacking them in this
They were
past game.
exploiting them.
Well, I mean, hey, they're not used to playing this many full live games. Like this CFL's a tough league, right? It's a tough league, and you were playing some tough teams, and they're going to exploit you. And like whether the short zone on pass or they're going to just try to run, they're gonna test them. So we need our playmakers back who can make a difference. And what is the health of Peters? He was questionable going into the Toronto game. I think in Montreal he was kind of banged up for a bit. He was a little banged up in Toronto. Played again. So this bye is going to help him. We need him to lock down one corner. So, and are there reinforcements coming to play in the secondary? So those are all my questions to ask. Can we get a little bit more from the quarterbacks? We need them to play.
Perfect.
We need them to play VA level in games 2 to 6 in order for them to be dominant.
Back to their previous level. They've both operated at extreme levels, so we know that they can do it.
For sure. Right. And I mean, VA's done it more recently. Rourke hasn't done it for a couple of years. Yeah. And he had moments where he's good. And so I could see if Rourke hasn't, maybe it was just too much to ask. And maybe his sweet spot's going to be next year. The ball might go back to VA because he most recently had really good success in games 2 to 6, right?
Okay, if he goes back to 2 to 6
games 2 to 6, yeah,
games 2 to 6. If he goes back to the 2 to 6 level, we'll call it. If the receivers don't, because come on, just because he's playing at 2 to 6, football's a team game. Those receivers had to be playing elite too, correct?
Well, and then the O-line's got to give them some measure of protection.
Well, I think I like your formula. If you pull Perkins and switch in Knievel. I mean, I don't know. Knievel's like somebody said is a natural left tackle. Can he play right tackle?
Yeah.
So just a comment from Blake. He says Rourke will 1,000% start against Hamilton.
Oh, 100%.
So, yes.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
No, Blake said 1,000%.
100%. Well, I mean, yeah, for sure. He's going to start. Question is it going to be a short leash again?
And everybody's still asking, what was the leash for? I mean, you score a touchdown. And
I was a little surprised.
Well, but, I mean, I know Campbell says they needed a spark, but I think they needed a spark defensively because the defense was getting tired coming up to that point. I think they needed a spark defensively. But then who can you plug in to give them a defensive spark, right?
They don't, yeah.
I mean, I can see what I can see the thinking that Campbell had, right? Yes, he did end the half with a touchdown, but up till then, he was slow in his reads. That he was holding on to the ball a lot longer, right? And he wasn't connecting on the medium to deep balls, right? So I could see Campbell thinking, okay, maybe let's change it up a bit. Maybe that'll provide a spark, right?
Yeah,
So
I think VA's your potentially second best player. Maybe Peters and Betts are there too, right? But among the two quarterbacks and Betts and Peters, those are your best four players, right? So you got to make a change, and
yeah,
you bring in VA and see what happens, right? He's a great leader. People love playing for him. He's like a locker room leader, and
yeah,
he's an inspirational kind of guy. So maybe that would lift them out of this offensive
yeah,
malaise they're in. And then he had some initial success. I'm like, okay, good. He
yeah.
had some quick passes. Then he dropped
Under the
back.
ball.
He
And
dropped
the O
back and he
line,
got sack,
the O line,
sack.
yeah, the O line.
And then he's
Well,
trying
It's
to
the O
go
line
deep.
again, yeah.
Because then he loves to go deep, and then you give him the deep ball. He wants to go for it, but the O line couldn't protect. Then
So would
Yeah,
you say, I mean,
I was
on a
hoping
football
that he
team,
would.
is the quarterback the one position you can change that makes, puts a spark through the whole team then, because it's the one kind of single position versus pulling out one lineman, pulling out one corner, pulling out one
Yeah,
linebacker. I
I
mean,
mean, what I was hoping there was that he would, because he was on the sidelines, that maybe because he's not right in the midst of things,
he could see something.
he can see something that maybe Nate is missing, and that when he goes in, he can either adjust to that or take advantage of it, right?
And give Nate a different perspective while he's on the side,
Exactly,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh well, we sweep this one under the rug. I guess all our predictions didn't
yeah.
come true, so I'm up a beer on you guys. That means I can buy you two beers the next time we put a wager on.
Well, I wanna shift gears a bit. What went well? I'll start. Okay, I'll start with what went well. You guys can think of what went well with this game. A lot went wrong, and it was a very disappointing game. But I liked what I saw out of that running back. What was his name again?
Terrell?
Jordan Terrell. I mean, it was kind of garbage time. Uh, Blake says Ben Major. That's it. So, that was funny. Yeah, absolutely funny. The fact that it happened twice in a season, I've never seen it happen in I don't know how many years.
We've always
And then
wondered though, like, what if somebody hits this? We've always wondered what would happen, right?
exactly, and then the same official, uh, and so he was funny. So that was a highlight. But I like what I saw out of Jordan Terrell. It was a little bit late in the game. Maybe Toronto was kind of easing up a bit.
oh
But
yeah,
but the grit, he wouldn't give up. That touchdown where he just kept running
He
with
saw
with
the
uh,
goal
with
line from
so,
the
so
10,
many
and
guys.
he did. He did. He was awesome.
Yeah, so I like that. It was good to give Bryce some time, some game time, and he did okay too. Um, and he got a good field position with the block punt. So those were some good stuff. Um, Blake says the defense was good except for um, oh, I can't see that.
the two
A few
drives, yeah,
drives,
yeah.
yeah, 2 drives in my opinion.
Well, they kicked
Okay,
6 field goals, so
yeah, exactly.
I mean it's
But
pretty
our offense
much.
couldn't kick one or more than one. So 6 field goals beat us. I said 9-0. That game was over. As
Yeah.
pessimist as gonna.
Any
Oh,
anything else that went well, you guys?
I'm going to say
Anything that-
special teams. Patrice Rene was a demon. He was all first downfield. He pretty much, other than that one long return, because he got clipped, and I stood up and screamed like an idiot that he was clipped or blocked from behind. But he had Janarian Grant pretty much in check most of that game, and he blocked the punt. I mean, Rene
Yeah,
was great. He was all over the place. I mean, I was calling for his number when they had him as, I think they had him as safety, and they had Green as as the tweener, and Regum was the tweener, and Green was a half or something like that, and it wasn't working. But Rene, I thought kept the special teams unit relevant against
yeah. The
Toronto.
block punt is hard actually. Which game was it this week where there was a
Hamilton,
block punt,
the
but
Hamilton
but
game.
the blocker ran into the kicker, and that was a penalty.
But I
I
always
I don't
thought
know
if you
when
touched the ball first, then the kicker
it
took
was
it.
it was like that, but at some point I don't even know when it changed. The rule had changed You're
So you
not
can't
you're
touch the
not
kicker,
allowed to.
period, then.
Yeah, you're not allowed to contact the kicker at all, even if you contact the ball first. So
Yeah,
what
because
would
that
have been
was
a
a
block
major.
punt?
They think that was the turning point of that game. They said that was a huge swing because I think Hamilton went right down and scored a major after that.
Yeah, in that play, right? That same play, I think, right? So block punts are hard now. You can't contact the kicker.
So
Okay,
we got
Arthur,
Terrell. We got. So
what
what
went
about
well?
Arthur? What Arthur think went well?
Matt Baker guessing Louis Pasaglia in 3 seconds.
Okay, well, I gotta say that the gal at the stadium reads a lot slower to the fan than Matt Baker reads on his own. But anyway.
Okay, I'd say the defense. I offense gave him hardly anything for the first 5 drives. So I think the defense. I think the players rose, although they were out schemed because they wanted to take away and they wanted to take away the deep ball. I believe at the end of the third quarter, RP tried to mix it up and blitz a bit more. And then they got Kelly on his back. But then by that time, they're up so much, right? The bend don't break. They're just allowing so many points, field goals. So at that time, Toronto was probably playing more conservative anyways. But I would say the defense as a whole. I think the players more than the coaching. That's what I would think.
All right. So let's shift gears. Looking ahead, so we have a bye week. The week after that is Hamilton. That's at home, right? Where it's a home game.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that game. So not predictions, but thoughts on what we need to do, what should happen, what will happen.
Well, the obvious is we need to win, right? Everyone's going to say that but I think they've got to get back to that formula that won them in Montreal, like a varied offense. They've got to establish a running game against Hamilton. No question.
Yeah. Arthur, I mean, how would you scheme against Hamilton?
Well, I mean, number one, like Chris Jones he's going to give you everything, right? He's going to give you pressure. He's going to drop, right?
He's going to take away your one thing. Right?
He's going to take away your one thing. So he'll take away McInnes, right? I mean, he probably obviously he'll stop stand back first. So just make you just a passing team, and you'll take away McInnes and Hatcher. So it's going to be Katoy and Eberhardt and Berryhill beating you. I think he'll take those odds any day of the week. So I mean that's from a defensive point of view. Offensively, Bo's going to go deep. He's going to test, or if it's going to be Powell, they're going to test the line secondary. The pass rush. I mean, at times it gets through, but it's a bend don't break. And you can do some kind of if they can establish the run with Greg Bell, then we're in trouble, because then we have to bring our defense closer to the line of scrimmage or into the box, and then they're going to exploit us deep. So we're going to have to stop the run without a lot of safety or halfback help. Like it just has to be the front seven has to stop the run. We're going to need
any ideally defense wants is the front seven involved. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to bring in halfbacks and your safety to do run stop, then you're susceptible deep, right? So I think that's what they got to do. I think I know what Hamilton's going to do. How is BC going to answer the bell?
Yeah. The inside runs were not too bad this year, right? The inside, at least on the last few games, our inside run defense is not too bad.
I mean, Kerry
kind of it's when they go outside the tackles we have a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
When they attack our edges, we have a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
And then we just second down, something happens. Like we just can't. Not enough times we're making the big play. And against Toronto, whatever reason, a lot of that their second down conversion stat is very misleading, because I think 5 or 6 times they had 1 yard to go.
Or less.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or less. Yeah.
And
so again,
more than 5 or 6.
Yes.
I really think it was more than 5 or 6. Maybe in a half it was 5 or 6.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But essentially, is like I always say, our quarterbacks need to be our best players. whoever. I mean, it's probably it's 100%, 1,000% it's Nate to start for sure. And he needs to be on, and he needs to be decisive, and if not, run, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't think
Yeah,
about it. Just go.
those
Just
sacks. If he
play.
had he
Just play.
run instead of taking those sacks, might have been a different game, right?
I think VA held onto the ball a little longer than Nate did, but I think Nate was just slower to read. I think we have comments there, Roland.
Yeah.
Maybe VA too. He
So
said he was surprised to get in, and maybe it took him a little longer to get a feel for the game, or he never got a feel for the game. He's running for his life most of the time, or getting sacked.
yeah, let me just read a few comments. So Blake says if Hamilton wins this week, they are in a potential fight for a playoff spot. But if they lose, they might be deflated about the Lions game, knowing that the season is officially over. Oh, I didn't know that. Who's Hamilton playing against this week?
This week, Toronto. Is it Toronto again? No.
Hamilton is playing Toronto. Yeah. Okay, so that's a good data point. If if Toronto beats Hamilton, Blake's saying potentially they might be out of the playoff run. So, huh. Blake also said earlier, as much as I hate to say it, Campbell isn't the guy. Yeah, Campbell, I'm kind of hot and cold with him, right? Like when things are going well, he seems like an easygoing guy, but when we need that grit and that intensity, he doesn't seem to fire up, the people.
Do we need the grit and intensity, or do we need better schemes from the coordinators?
I think I would say grit and intensity. I think,
Well,
I
And the
think with
play,
grit
then
and
the play
intensity,
calling, then the schemes.
Well,
I think
you're
so.
talking chicken and the egg, right? Because if you had gritty and intense players, your schemes are different, right? You play smash mouth football if you've got gritty and intense players. If you've got finesse players like McAvoy and Campbell seem to, how long did it take Campbell to get his head out of the sand with regards to the little scat back? Finally, he's gone to a bigger power back, like every other team in the league has. Okay, so they built the finesse team, like you guys said, a pass first team. That's not a lot of grit and intensity to be a passing team. It doesn't take a lot of grit and intensity to pass block. But
I don't think we necessarily have to change our scheme. If we can increase our grit and intensity, look at the Montreal game when Stanback was just running everyone over. It got to the point that where people were afraid to tackle him, right? So even without changing the scheme, if you're just running down their throat and it would stand back, right? They're going to be afraid. Look at the game in Victoria where our DBs were just flocking to make the gang tackles, right? So you don't need to make a scheme change. They were there, not just the tackling. They were right there. You make the catch there. They hit you right away instead of waiting another 5 yards, right? So that's why I answered the question the way I did. I think grit and intensity can take us to that next level, even if our schemes don't change.
Ottawa and Montreal down a couple of receivers for both teams. They could afford to play man coverage, and that's why the DBs were right on top of them. But if they can't match up against that receiving core, they play zone because they're afraid. They're afraid to get beat deep. So when you're playing zone, they're in their zones, and they just seem to be not as fast reacting to these seam passes than other teams, and that's what you get when you're playing man. You're right on. You should be man to man, very close to that receiver.
Yeah.
So complementary football,
zone, right?
Well, you're in the. Sometimes they flood the zone, right? They go three guys in the zone, and then they peel. And sometimes, if you have inexperienced linebackers who are providing that zone up on top, right?
Yeah.
And they're not dropping that deep, and then you're sending three guys, and then they kind of fan out in three different areas. You're not used to the switches. You're not used to who's got the short, who's got the long, and then there's a little separation, right? And if we're not getting pressure on the quarterback because we're worried about something else, a run or whatever, these guys are getting open. That's the deal. So I don't know. So your question about what was that? What was your question?
Yeah, just the Hamilton game. It's 6:24, so I guess we got about 5 minutes left.
Hmm.
Just looking ahead to Hamilton, um, I guess let's do predictions now. We talked about what we should do. Let's do predictions. Blake put in a good data point that if Hamilton loses this week, it might be a different intensity for them. Um, predictions, or maybe okay. Let's hold predictions till next week because we got a bye week. So let's not do predictions until after next week's game.
No players allowed to go home this bye week. They got to figure this thing out. Said it on Friday. I'm saying it again. No players allowed to go home. They stay here and they figure this thing out.
I think that's what Nathan said. He's not going anywhere. Well,
Yeah.
Vancouver is his home, anyways. But
He owns a
But
house
he's-
here.
yeah, so he's going to work at it. He's going to work at it. My prediction, I was going to say Vancouver 3-0 over the Oilers or the Flames, whatever.
Oh,
That's
here
my
we
prediction.
go. Shut him down. Shut him down. Is there update on Hollins? Was it a separation? Was it a dislocation? Has anything been said yet?
Nothing. Not that I've
Yeah.
seen.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything yet,
Okay.
Yeah. but yeah, I mean, if Hollins, if I hope he can come back soon. But if he's not, then Barry Hill will be stepping in, I guess, right? Yeah, Blake says unlikely to be announced until after the bye.
Yeah. They're going to give us some time. There's no point.
Yeah,
Okay. Then no players allowed to
Right.
go home. No players, no coaches can go home. No
I don't
coaches
think-
can leave the office until after the game next week.
Well, maybe they need a break because
yeah. Sometimes he just kind of
because
How much work went into a defense that 8 plays beats consistently? Not a lot. Come up with a better defense.
well, I think maybe they need a break to just hit the reset button so they can come up with a better scheme, right? So I think they're being Roland's point is the intensity. I think sometimes they're being out schemed, and
definitely they were being out schemed. Yeah,
So you
And
say
being
you need a
outcoached.
mental break to learn how to reset on the go, to adjust on the go, which is what football coaches do, which what professional coaches get paid to do. I'm sorry, not a lot of grace and mercy here from this guy. I'm a pain
Well,
in the
and-
fan. Like that,
Oh, sorry, go
honestly,
ahead,
the more I think about Friday's game, I mean, that game was 3 days ago, and I'm still nauseous. I see people,
yeah.
the words embarrassment and disappointment are all over the place, and I agree.
It is. Yeah.
Right.
Blake says it's a good thing you three never take a break.
No, only one of
So-
us goes to Hawaii, but he's still working, Blake. See, he's still working.
Yeah.
See, they never
No,
would have
I
known
hear
you were in
what you're
Hawaii.
saying.
Bro.
That's true. I did say it at the beginning. So, all right, it's 6:28. I guess we'll call it here. Blake says, "I'm honestly ready to move on to Hamilton." Yeah, we can put this behind us. But a good thing about the media interview with both Nathan and Rourke, Nathan and Vernon, was that they both said that they're going to be studying the film hard. So
Before we call it a night, quick shout out to the Barnside Brewery. Can we get Blake to meet us at Barnside pregame? He's a Ladner guy, kind of. Blake, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Come on, Blake, reply. Okay, speak to my
It's all
producer
right.
off the air.
We'll reach out to him and we'll invite him to go to Barnside.
Yes, sir. Hear that, Barnside?
maybe
You
not
heard
for
it here
the-
on Three Down Bros.
or in the Hamilton game. Well, yeah, it'll be tight, but it can still
tight.
happen.
We'll do it early. We'll do if we do it before the Hamilton game. We'll do it early and then we'll head out to the
Okay,
game.
that's a 2 o'clock day for this pro here. That's a 2 o'clock day. It's a lot better than a 4 o'clock day.
Okay.
Calgary game.
Blake says maybe not Hamilton, but maybe for the Calgary game. Definitely for the Calgary game. All right, guys. Let's. It's at 8:29. So, 9:29 your time, 6:29 my time. We'll call it a night. Thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks for your comments. Love chatting with all of you guys online. And if you're joining us, watching this after the live stream, let us know your comments too. Otherwise, we'll catch you next week. Next week we're going to be back to Sundays our normal time at 8:30 for our live stream. We don't have a game then, but we're still going to have a chat to talk about the Lions and what's happened during that week. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good evening.
See ya.
Go Lions.
See you. Bye-bye.